Money can't buy everything, and for some of the world's wealthiest women, it clearly can't buy a flashy lifestyle either. They could live in palaces, wear designer from head to toe, and travel with entourages, but they don't. These women prove that wealth doesn't always need to scream for attention, and their choices might just make you rethink what luxury really means. Number 10. Ayesha Curry. When you hear the name Ayesha Curry, most people immediately think of her husband, NBA superstar Stephen Curry, whose career earnings have made him one of basketball's wealthiest players. But Ayesha herself is no small figure. She's a successful author, TV personality, restaurateur, and entrepreneur. Her cookbooks, lifestyle brand, and cooking shows have earned her millions, making her one of the most influential figures in food and family media. In short, she could easily live a life of luxury at every turn. Yet, despite this incredible wealth, the Currys live in ways that feel surprisingly grounded. Take the kitchen, for instance. Ayesha could hire top chefs to handle every meal, but she doesn't.
I do. I'm all about the home and family, and so I have a whole cookware collection of all sorts of.
She prepares most family dinners herself, taking joy in cooking wholesome, home-cooked meals just like anyone else. She has said that family meals around the table are a way to teach her children values, gratitude, and togetherness, not to show off wealth. Even their day-to-day life emphasizes modesty. Grocery trips, casual family outings, and everyday parenting moments are often shared on social media, showing relatable routines rather than luxury excess. Their home is evidently filled with laughter, playful chaos, and candid family snapshots, not designer displays or extravagant parties. In fact, Ayesha also openly shares candid family clips on social media, goofy kid moments, parenting reality, and moments of gratitude rather than lavish displays. They have extraordinary resources, but choose a lifestyle rooted in ordinary, everyday presence, home-centered routines, and meaning over material flash. She says very often in interviews that extreme wealth doesn't have to mean extreme display. Ayesha is a woman who's committed to modeling how someone can have extraordinary resources, but still embrace a life rooted in ordinary routines, home-centered values, and meaningful family traditions, showing that modesty can coexist with riches in a very deliberate, inspiring way. Number 9. Gabrielle Union. With Gabrielle Union, what most of us see is the Hollywood success, red carpets, and blockbuster films. And to be fair, the success is very real. Gabrielle has indeed spent decades building a thriving acting career, starring in films and shows like Bring It On, Bad Boys 2, and Being Mary Jane. Through acting, endorsements, books, and her hair care brand Flawless by Gabrielle Union, she has built a personal net worth estimated at around $40 million. Her husband, retired NBA legend Dwyane Wade, is worth roughly $170 million, meaning the couple's combined wealth exceeds $200 million. With that level of wealth, it would be easy for their household to revolve around luxury and excess. But interestingly, Gabrielle has often spoken about approaching money in a far more practical way. She has been open about budgeting, financial planning, and sharing expenses, even in a household where millions are involved.
Everyone, no matter who's around, knows what the rules are. At 10 o'clock, you have to turn your phones, your iPads, laptops in.
In interviews and public conversations, she has explained that she and Wade have historically approached finances with a 50-50 mindset, reinforcing the idea that both partners contribute and remain financially responsible. That transparency about money is unusual in celebrity circles, where wealth is often presented as effortless. Gabrielle has said that talking honestly about finances, even the stress that can come with supporting family members or managing large expenses, helps normalize responsible financial behavior. At one point, she discussed the cost of caring for family members' medical needs, explaining that even wealthy families still have to make thoughtful decisions about income and spending. Lifestyle-wise, the couple also tends to keep their home life relatively grounded. While they certainly own beautiful properties, much of what Gabrielle shares publicly revolves around family routines, parenting, wellness, and mental health, rather than flashy displays of luxury. Their social media presence often shows everyday moments with their children, conversations about therapy and self-care, and reflections on personal growth. She obviously recognizes that immense wealth doesn't automatically translate into a showy lifestyle. Instead, she often emphasizes financial awareness, emotional well-being, and family stability. A reminder that even in a multi-million-dollar household, intentional living can still look surprisingly modest. Before we move on, I'd like to ask you a small favor. If you appreciate this content, please take a second to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Over 99% of you watch the videos without subscribing. It costs you nothing, but it makes a huge difference to us. Thank you so much. Now back to the video. Number 8. Michelle Obama. Michelle Obama is definitely synonymous to power, influence, and prestige, and not without reason. Alongside her husband Barack Obama, Michelle helped lead the United States for 8 years, and since leaving the White House has gone on to build an impressive post-presidency life. Together, the Obamas' combined net worth is estimated to be around $70 million, built from best-selling books, speaking engagements, media deals, and investments in media and real estate. Michelle's memoir, Becoming, sold millions of copies worldwide, catapulting her into the ranks of the best-paid authors and speakers globally. With wealth like that, you might expect nothing but glamour and elite living, but that isn't all there is to her story. Michelle does wear high-end fashion, but she also does more accessible brands, intentionally blending designer pieces with labels like Banana Republic, J. Crew, and Gap in public appearances and everyday life. That fashion, high-low approach has been widely noted. She wears striking outfits from major houses, but also champions the kinds of brands average people can afford, showing a kind of grounded style that feels relatable to many. Another example of her modest choices, even within the bounds of security and protocol, is her relationship with driving. As a former First Lady and public figure with ongoing security from the Secret Service, she isn't allowed to just take the wheel and drive herself on public roads anymore, but in earlier years, she spoke fondly about normal things like learning to drive and giving her daughters a sense of independence, even within a protective environment.
I'm generally the one who's orchestrating it because, it's like our girls, they don't have any money. We're like, don't take our money and buy us a gift.
Michelle's life isn't defined by opulence alone. She continually incorporates everyday, relatable elements, from mixing budget-friendly fashion to emphasizing family normalcy, into a life that on paper would seem far removed from the everyday. It's that balance between extraordinary wealth and everyday simplicity that makes her lifestyle uniquely grounded. Number 7. Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie. When you think of Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie, it helps to picture someone whose voice literally changed how people all over the world talk about race, gender, and storytelling. She's not just a celebrated novelist, she's one of the most influential writers of her generation, whose books like Half of a Yellow Sun, Americana, and Purple Hibiscus have been translated into dozens of languages and won major international awards. Her essays, especially We Should All Be Feminists, sparked global conversations about equality and were even sampled in Beyoncé's hits. All of that success has translated into real financial success too. She's estimated to be worth in the multi-millions from book sales, speaking engagements, lectures, and her role in global literary culture. And yet, despite this level of achievement and the freedom that comes with it, Chimamanda and her family choose an incredibly grounded way of life. Alongside her husband, Dr. Ivara Esege, a medical doctor with his own successful career, she keeps her family life incredibly private and modest. When they married in 2009, they did so in a quiet ceremony with close friends rather than a big public event. Since then, they've kept details of their children's lives out of the spotlight, intentionally avoiding social media spectacle and keeping their kids out of the public eye as much as possible. Even with the platform she has, Chimamanda has almost never been seen flaunting luxury. She focuses first on her craft, her ideas, and her impact, writing, teaching, mentoring, and engaging in feminist and literary communities rather than on red carpet glamour or material displays. Her public appearances tend to be about culture, books, and social issues, not flashy lifestyle branding. This grounded approach is part of who she is, a global voice who values quiet dignity, intellectual work, and authentic expression over ostentatious living. Number 6. Alicia Keys. Alicia Keys basically has it all: Grammy Awards, chart-topping hits, and sold-out tours. She's not just a singer though, she's also a multi-platinum artist, songwriter, producer, and entrepreneur whose career spans decades. Through album sales, royalties, and touring, Alicia has built a net worth estimated at $80 million. And together with her husband, Swizz Beatz, they're considered one of music's most influential power couples. Yet, despite this wealth, Alicia has made deliberate choices that reflect modesty and grounded living. One of the most noticeable was her decision to go makeup-free in public for a while. Since around 2016, she has consistently appeared at events, in interviews, and on social media without heavy makeup, promoting natural beauty and self-acceptance. In her own words, this shift was about feeling confident in her own skin and encouraging fans to embrace authenticity rather than relying on expensive beauty trends.
Very spiritual and just very connected to, to the universe.
Beyond her appearance, Alicia prioritizes spirituality, family, and social causes over materialism. She co-founded Keep a Child Alive, supporting families affected by HIV in Africa and India, and frequently discusses purpose, gratitude, and creativity in interviews. Even with the means to indulge in extravagant lifestyles, she often chooses quiet family moments, mindfulness practices, and philanthropic work over flaunting wealth. Her wardrobe choices also reflect perfect balance. While she wears designer pieces on stage or at major events, she often pairs them with simpler, accessible items in everyday life. She shows that wealth doesn't have to equal ostentation, and that choosing authenticity, modesty, and meaningful work can coexist with immense resources. As much as we love her, her life reminds fans that success isn't just about what you own, it's about how you live it. Number 5. Graça Machel. Graça Machel has lived a life surrounded by power, history, and extraordinary influence. She is famously the only woman in modern history to have been First Lady of 2 different countries. First Mozambique as the wife of President Samora Machel, and later South Africa after marrying Nelson Mandela in 1998. That alone tells you the level of political prestige and wealth she has been connected to. Nelson Mandela himself left behind an estate valued at tens of millions of rand, along with properties and global recognition that place the family among the most influential figures in the world. But if you expect Graça Machel to live like a glamorous political widow, you'd be wrong. Despite decades around presidents, diplomats, and global elites, she has always chosen a remarkably modest way of living. People who have followed her work often point out that she travels quietly, without the kind of massive entourages that typically follow high-profile political families. Instead of turning public appearances into celebrity moments, she tends to keep things simple and focused on the cause she's working for. And that cause has almost always been humanitarian work. Long before she became Nelson Mandela's wife, Machel had already built her own reputation as an activist and policymaker. After Mozambique gained independence, she served as the country's first Minister of Education and later became an international advocate for children's welfare and women's rights. Her groundbreaking report on how war affects children even changed how the United Nations approaches conflict zones. So, while many people in her position might spend their time attending lavish social events, Machel has spent decades doing the opposite, working with charities, global organizations, and advocacy groups focused on poverty, education, and child protection. That's really the pattern of her life: proximity to enormous power, paired with a very grounded personal style. Even after Mandela's passing, she continued focusing on humanitarian initiatives rather than stepping into a celebrity-style lifestyle. Number 4. Dolapo Osinbajo. Dolapo Osinbajo has spent years in one of the most powerful circles in Nigeria. As the wife of former Nigerian Vice President Yemi Osinbajo, she lived in the official vice presidential residence in Abuja and moved within the highest levels of government, diplomacy, and national leadership. People in those kinds of positions are usually surrounded by luxury, motorcades, designer wardrobes, and high-profile social events. Nigeria's top political families often live extremely comfortably, with access to influence, wealth, and global networks. But Dolapo Osinbajo has never really leaned into that lifestyle. If anything, she's known for being surprisingly simple and approachable. Instead of appearing in flashy designer labels the way many political spouses do, she's often seen wearing traditional Nigerian fabrics, things like Ankara and Aso-oke, styled in a modest, understated way. It's the kind of clothing many ordinary Nigerian women wear every day, which makes her style feel relatable rather than elite. And it's not just about fashion. While some political spouses build their public image around glamorous events and society galas, Dolapo Osinbajo has spent much of her time focusing on grassroots community work. One of her most well-known initiatives is the Women's Helping Hand Initiative, which supports vulnerable women and families through skills training and empowerment programs. That choice says a lot about her priorities. Instead of turning her position into a celebrity lifestyle, she's often used it as a platform for quiet service. Many of her activities revolve around mentoring young women, supporting widows, and helping small community groups build practical skills that can improve their livelihoods. People who follow Nigerian politics have often commented on how grounded the Osinbajo family appears to be despite their influence. Even while serving at the highest levels of government, their public image remained relatively modest compared to the flashier side of political life. In a country where power can easily translate into visible wealth, Dolapo Osinbajo seems to prefer something different: simplicity, tradition, and service. Number 3. Cookie Johnson. Cookie Johnson is a force to reckon with, but most people don't know this, and they often attribute her wealth to her husband, NBA legend Magic Johnson. And it's easy to see why. Magic built an enormous business empire after his basketball career, investing in sports teams, real estate, restaurants, and entertainment companies. Together, the Johnsons have an estimated combined net worth of about $1 billion, placing them among the wealthiest couples connected to the sports world. Cookie herself is far from just a bystander in that success. She is an author, entrepreneur, fashion designer, and activist, with her own ventures including the clothing brand CJ by Cookie Johnson and a best-selling memoir titled Believing in Magic. Through business and advocacy work, her personal net worth alone has been estimated at around $150 million. Yet what's interesting about Cookie Johnson is how quietly she chooses to live, especially considering the level of wealth surrounding her. While the NBA and Hollywood circles she moves in are actually famous for glamour and extravagance, Cookie tends to keep a relatively low-profile public life. Her focus has consistently been on family, faith, and philanthropy rather than flashy displays of luxury. One of the biggest areas where that shows is her charitable work. Cookie has long been involved with the Magic Johnson Foundation, which helps raise awareness about HIV/AIDS prevention and supports underserved communities.
Because I never could have made it through without that faith.
Yeah.
And I could start telling you about the journey about that, but because God was all in it. And
The cause is deeply personal. Shortly after their 1991 wedding, Magic Johnson revealed he was HIV positive, and Cookie stood by him publicly during what was an incredibly difficult time. Since then, she has helped turn that experience into decades of advocacy and education. Beyond philanthropy, Cookie often dedicates time to mentoring young people, speaking about resilience, family values, and community responsibility. Her public appearances and interviews tend to center on encouragement, faith, and service rather than lifestyle or luxury branding. In other words, even though the Johnson family could easily lean into celebrity excess, Cookie's life tells a different story. She's surrounded by immense wealth but chooses purpose, mentorship, and community impact over spectacle. Number 2. Toyin Saraki. Toyin Saraki isn't just known as the wife of Bukola Saraki, a former president of the Nigerian Senate and longtime political figure in Nigeria. She's a global health advocate and philanthropist in her own right. Born into the prominent Ojora and Adele royal families of Lagos, she grew up with access to elite education and opportunities, earning law degrees from the London School of Oriental and African Studies and King's College London before being called to the Nigerian bar in 1989. Her background and connections place her among Nigeria's socio-political elite, and her marriage into the Saraki family, one of the country's most influential political dynasties, means she's part of one of Nigeria's wealthier circles. Despite this, Toyin Saraki's public persona isn't about luxury lifestyles or elite socializing. She is best known as the founder-president of the Well-Being Foundation Africa, which she established to improve maternal, newborn, and child health, fight gender-based discrimination, and support education and community empowerment across Africa. Over 2 decades, she has worked alongside global partners like the World Health Organization, UNFPA, and Save the Children to address fundamental health challenges and advance sustainable development goals. So, rather than spending public time at elite social events, Toyin's days are filled with advocacy, community programs, and mentoring. Her foundation's initiatives, including #Maternal Monday campaigns and WASH, water, sanitation, and hygiene, education efforts, focus on practical solutions that improve lives, especially for vulnerable women and children. In interviews and public engagements, she dresses simply and modestly, reflecting her focus on service over spectacle. Her social media presence and speeches mostly have to do with community health, rights, and empowerment instead of luxury lifestyles, showing she chooses impact over ostentation, even within a wealthy and influential family context. Number 1. Oprah Winfrey. This might come as a rude shock, but Oprah Winfrey isn't as lavish as people think she is. She does operate on a level of wealth that very few entertainers ever reach. And after building her career from a local television host to a global media powerhouse, she became one of the richest self-made women in the world, with an estimated net worth of about $2.8 billion. Much of that fortune came from the enormous success of The Oprah Winfrey Show, which ran for 25 years and reached millions of viewers daily. From there, she expanded into film production, publishing, magazine ownership, and television networks, including the Oprah Winfrey Network. Smart investments and business partnerships turned her personal brand into a global empire. Her longtime partner, Stedman Graham, is also a successful author and leadership educator, known for books and programs focused on identity development and personal growth. With their combined influence and wealth, the couple could easily live the kind of ultra-extravagant lifestyle that often defines billionaire culture. But Oprah has largely chosen a different path. While she does own notable properties, including her well-known estate in Montecito, California, she isn't famous for constantly acquiring luxury assets like fleets of exotic cars or endless mansions around the world. Much of her public life instead centers on purposeful living, learning, and philanthropy, values she often connects to her humble upbringing in rural Mississippi. A large share of Oprah's wealth has gone toward charitable work and education initiatives. Through the Oprah Winfrey Charitable Foundation, she has funded scholarships, leadership programs, disaster relief efforts, and community projects. One of her most notable contributions is the Oprah Winfrey Leadership Academy for Girls in South Africa, a school designed to give talented young girls access to world-class education and leadership training. In interviews and public speeches, Oprah rarely talks about luxury or material possessions. Her conversations usually revolve around growth, gratitude, education, and service, showing that even with billions of dollars, she prefers to focus on impact rather than spectacle. If you thought being rich meant living large, these women just proved you wrong. Which of their choices surprised you the most? Drop a comment, hit like if you love modest luxury, and don't forget to subscribe for more stories that flip what you think you know about wealth.